I lived here in Crestone previously in the 1990s with my former husband, Simeon. We had the sacred mystery school here called Johanning Grove, and in 1996 we were gifted with 2 living doves. At that point, I was given information concerning the doves and their higher purpose within our temple. And this is the story I wish to relate to you here because it goes far beyond just our little doves, and it tells the story of the Lemurian Celebration and its connection to the Christos. And so now we begin with the Thoth transmission given to us about these doves in 1996. The white doves gifted to Johanning Grove are seated by what the Lemurians call Samurdii, or living logos. These are flame beings that surround and disseminate divine commands from the sun spirit indwelling in every star. They form the holy corona about the solar throne, and from the Samurdii come the angelic fire letters that are evidenced in the dance of atomic being. The Samurdii are able to enter the living fields of certain animals, most especially birds. They can, on even rare occasions, form lesser seeds in crystals, trees, plants, and rocks. In your current time, neither is a common occurrence. Now that would have been in 1996. However, Thoth is telling me now that is becoming more and more prominent. The Samurdii are living tongues of fire. When they are inserted as a seed into an animal being, this insertion takes place in the heart and moves like a quivering cord up through the pineal and then through the crown of the head, and is attached to a lotus-like matrix that houses the presence of the Samurdii. The Samurdii also remains in the holy corona. You could think of them as bilocating into the urana, or lotus matrix. Through the Samurdii, which are most powerfully expressed in birds or other animals, a divine fire charge is brought forth into the region where the Devic creature dwells. We do not refer solely to its physical habitat here, but also the bird animal's spiritual abode, of which the physical habitat is merely a manifestation. Through this divine fire blessing, as the ancients called it, grace is given unto the supplicants who come unto the Samurdii seated ones, beseeching their blessings. While Samurdii usually give their seeding to the earth through birds, in the very ancient days they sometimes infused cats and serpents also. The Samurdii themselves do not choose their earthly vehicles. These are chosen through the living lights, the angelic beings within the star suns, whose unified chorus of spirit sounds the tone of the sun spirit. The Johanning Grove doves are named Helios for the sun god and Vesta for the goddess of radiant light. They are the personification of the spirit of the Johanning Grove temple. The most ancient Druids kept doves in their groves, as did many goddess temples, such as those dedicated to Artemis, Diana, and Isis. In this context, the dove, and especially the white dove, was seen as the soul heart of the celestial goddess. From the mythos, the story developed that upon coming to earth, the celestial goddess dove pierced the heart of the planet with her beak, and in doing so, turned the earth's heart to gold. Then out of the earth heart, her many daughters were released, and were again manifest in the image of the white dove to find hearthing upon the planet. Wherever they took rest from flight, the ground they lit upon became sacred to the goddess of the celestial. The dove was also seen as the breath of the earth, as it released its pranic life force into the cosmos and then inhaled the stellar currents. Thus, whenever cyclical earth, stellar, lunar, and solar configurations came about, including solstices, equinoxes, and eclipses, white doves were released from certain temples. They were trained to fly to designated sacred places, each dove released to a different point, which formed a geometric exemplifying the cosmic pattern being overlaid upon the earth. Doves have the ability to find geostellar pathways and nodal points in the earth. The real Noah, who was an Atlantean, sent out a dove from the ark not to find dry land, but rather the sacral node where his ships were destined to come to rest. To the Amazon founders of ancient Ephesus in Turkey, the dove was also the sign of spirit victorious over death. It was the emblem of immortality, in other words. In Lemuria, Atlantis, Ephesus, and very ancient Greece, the dove was associated with the eternal flame and the solar god and goddess. The chants of the dove in the ancient temples were legendary in those distant ages. Both the Greek god or archetype Helios and the Roman goddess Vesta were represented by doves amongst their earliest symbols. So was Ishtar, a Sekhmet personification, Mithra, and other solar or light-bearing gods and goddesses. The archangels Metatron and Michael both possessed the white dove as a higher symbolic expression of their divinity, as do the Virgin Mary and the Christ. It has been stated in esoteric literature that two great beings represented by the archetypes of Helios and Vesta crossed their rays to create our solar system's sun, and Thoth concurs. He further reveals that the point where the two rays crossed, and thus where our sun was formed, is also the point where this solar system connects to the divine solar of the creation universe, which is that realm where all creation matrices are given forth into pattern. The emblem of the crossed rays of Helios and Vesta are two white doves meeting in the middle of a golden cross, their beaks touching and their two bodies forming a winged heart. Now I wish to pause a moment and say that when Thoth concurs with this, he's saying that this is a symbolic representation of a quantum science, of a universal principle. I just wanted to put that into perspective. The Lemurians celebrated their festival of the dove, which always took place for 7 days, ending on the day of winter solstice. This festival was repeated in Atlantis and later by the Amazon founders of Ephesus. The ancient festival of the dove was full of symbolic tribute to the passage of the sun on her winter voyage. Often 2 altars were created, one to represent the world before the crossing into winter, and the other to represent the world after having entered the sacred solstice of winter. A young man or woman would carry the light, usually represented by a torch, from the first altar across a golden ribbon representing the solstice at the midpoint between the 2 altars, to the second altar where the flame was established so that it would rekindle the sacred fire of germination in the earth. The Dovine pilgrims wind up a hill in procession, singing songs of the dove as they made their way to the summit. Here they would find a large golden cage with 2 white doves, or sometimes several pairs of doves. Bright and colorful ribbons had been tied to the cage, which sat before the altar. Young children would bring certain foods to the altar to be blessed by the purity of the new season, as witnessed in the snow-white birds. The children would then light candles and take the ribbons from the cages, passing them out as blessings among the people assembled upon the hill. Then a woman would appear, who was the dove keeper. She had raised the birds from infancy, and no one but her had ever touched them. The dove keeper would reach into the cage and take a dove one at a time, bestowing a blessing upon it and handing the dove to a child, who would then carry the dove through the crowd, allowing everyone to see and touch it. After the doves had been moved through the gathering of people, they were returned to the dove keeper, who released them into the sky. The dove pair represented the royal solar couple of Amatura, Helios, and Urkiva, Vesta. The birds were trained to fly to a peak in the mountains that was symbolically designated as the Utra, or cross point of the planet, for the rays of Amatura and Urkiva. It is important to reveal here that the crossing of the rays produces the white light of the Christic archangelic frequency, which was embodied within the Master Yeshua, or Jesus, from the time of baptism. The following is one of the ancient dove songs sung in the temples of the old ones. Its translation is fairly close to the original meaning, with some minor changes in order to create rhyme. He comes, the morning star, dove of white fire, burning bright, cleave the sun from amber light, become the veil of the moon, mists arising from earth's womb. He comes the dawn, he comes the brown and silver fawn. He comes the eventide, he comes for all who walk the path that he abides. Dove of grace, he keeps us in his feathered fold, his spirit in the smallest bird who braves the winter cold. He comes the rose, he comes the rain, he comes the hands that touch and heal the pain. He comes the night, he comes the day, he comes the morning star above to light the way. Witness of the flame, soft against our cheek, still the tears, stay the fears, his presence is proclaimed. The morning star is risen once again. As I'm creating this video on April 1st, 2024, we are approaching the solar eclipse on April 8th. It's going to be a dramatic one, a full eclipse in many places in the United States. I would suggest that if you haven't already, you read my article on it on Substack. I will place a link to that article in the information box below. Consider this eclipse as something very sacred, as all eclipses really are, but this is a special one. There's nothing dire about it. It is a beautiful, sacred time. However, as we move into this experience, it is important to set our hearts and minds upon the beauty of it and what it truly represents, rather than have any fear or follow any conspiracies about it. Feel the path, feel the sacredness of what you are seeing and hearing in your heart concerning this crossing of divine rays. Picture those beautiful Samurdii white doves enfolding you in their wings as you experience this sacred passage on April 8th.